So I wanted to start off, and everybody that's on the call, I wanted to let you know we have a brand new agent services director of technology with us. She started yesterday, and that's Rachel Vaughn. Say hi to everybody, Rachel.
Welcome. Hi.
Rachel's going to take just a second and just introduce herself and tell you a little bit about herself.
Hi everyone, my name is Rachel Vaughn. I'm obviously new to Keller Williams. I've been in the medical field for 12 years. Looking for a change of career. I've always had interest in homes and stuff like that, so I thought this would be a great place to start. I live just north of Ashley, and I have 2 kids, and they like to keep me busy with their sports, but yeah.
Well, stop by and say hello to her if you are in the office, and we are really excited to have her with us. So we got some big plans for her. And Kayla is going to give us a little update and reminder about DocuSign and dotloop.
Yeah. Hey guys. So as everyone knows, in 2 weeks, after June 15th, the Market Center's contract with dotloop will have expired. So that means that we're kind of creating these 2 groups within the Market Center, those that are choosing to stay with dotloop and those that are choosing to move forward with DocuSign. So quickly, to those of you that are planning to stay with dotloop, you do need to make sure that you have contacted someone from dotloop and set up your account because they need to know that you're planning on staying. So just know that the default is they're assuming you're moving to DocuSign. So I will put our sales rep, Adam, I'll put his contact information in the comments. And it's also been posted in our Facebook page. But just know that you do need to take some steps if you're planning on staying with them. For those of you moving forward with DocuSign, so we still have the recordings of all the classes that I did in May, and those are on our YouTube channel. We still are hosting the help room every Friday morning from 10 to 11 a.m. So that's just kind of like a come and go, bring your questions. They can be big questions, like how do I send a document, or like little questions about something very tiny that you just want clarification on. So that's every Friday at 10 a.m. And then we'll be doing 2 more classes in June, live Zoom classes for you guys. So these are on our calendar and will be posted in Facebook, but our next one we're gonna do Thursday, the 11th. So that's next week, June 11th at 2 p.m. And so that'll be right before the big move. So to prepare then, and then we'll do one on Wednesday, the 17th. So that'll be right after. So that's Thursday, the 11th at 2 p.m. and Wednesday, the 17th at 2 p.m. So that'll be via Zoom, and that'll be over DocuSign, like the whole beginning to end. So they'll take about an hour. So that's all I got for you guys.
Thank you, Kayla. So we're going to just jump right in and get started with our panel. So we had, Mary had a conflict, so Lori is actually gonna moderate our panel. And our panelists are Renee Mugen, Vinny Petrov, and Regan Lowe. So thank you guys for taking the time to share your knowledge with us. And Lori, take it away.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm excited to step in and moderate. I love it when our agents give back. You know, that is part of your code of ethics, and we live it. We live it to the fullest in this Market Center with the sharing that we have. So I'm excited to have Vinny and the 2 girls.
Sounds like a show.
So we have Regan, Renee, and Vinny. We're talking today about how you are creating new business, particularly in this very strange and stressful environment. So I'd like you each first to kind of introduce how long you've been in the business and kind of what your primary focus is. So Renee, why don't you get started?
Sure. I have been in the business since 2013, was on 2 different teams, but the last team I was on for about 5 years. And my primary focus is actually both listings and buyers. You know, it used to be a lot of luxury, but I am all over anything. I like it all, actually.
Okay. All right, Vinny. Unmute yourself.
Okay, hopefully you didn't hear me cuss. All right, I'm back. So I've been in the business since 2015. I do, my business is probably 50-50 buyers and sellers, although I'm trying to change that to get more listing heavy. I specialize, you know, I do it all, but I do a lot of land and new construction deals.
All right, and Regan. Where are you?
She muted.
Unmute. Is Regan here?
I saw her come on.
Did you?
Uh-huh.
We're having technical difficulties.
Yeah, she's
Hey,
on.
let's-
She's muted.
Can somebody put in the text box in the chat box for her to unmute? Let's see here. Regan?
Said Regan left.
She left?
Well, yeah, that's what it just said, but maybe she got, you know how it sometimes it's.
She's in and out. All right. Well, we'll get started anyway. So, Renee, where are you generating new business?
Excuse me. My go-to typically is always my past clients. That's the bread and butter of my business. I rely on that. So it's, you know, the others actually which is the next question we'll get to, that downtime are different things that I always say, well, I should do this when I have time. My go-to is always my past client sphere of influence. And so what I've found is I will, you know, especially when it's slow, those are the times where I'll pick up the phone, those people that you know you need to reach, you've forgotten about. I'll go through my list. I think, you know, who haven't I spoken to in a while? Who do I need to reach out to, even though I feel horribly guilty that I haven't talked to them or I forgot about them? And you just kind of suck it up and call them and check in. And I would say in the past, I will absolutely end up just by making a connection, not asking. I never ask for business. I really don't. It's not me. I don't call up somebody and say, you know, do you have the kind of the scripting where, you know, to call and say, hey, do you have anybody that you know that wants to buy or sell? I'm not that person. I'm more, you know, how are you? Let's go have lunch, you know, check in, that sort of thing. So that's where I find I'll get a call. I've had, when this COVID-19 hit, I probably had 3, maybe 4 new people that were referred to me from past clients. And it's just been a continual process. And I don't know how much time. I don't want to go take up too much time, but one of the things that I've always felt is strong, and I'm sure everybody does all of this, so I don't feel like I do necessarily anything different, but I've always believed overserve and be memorable and build those relationships. So if you can build a relationship, a personal one, be friends, and overserve, you'll always be memorable. They won't forget you. And I think it's not one or the other, it's hand in hand. Just overserve, but also be personable. And then they won't forget you and they tell somebody else. So that's where primarily my business has been coming from.
Vinny, how about you? How are you generating new business? Gotta unmute again.
Hey, I'm here. If you can't tell, technology is not my strong suit. So I agree with what Renee says. I am very database driven. That is the majority of my business. So I want to talk about that and kind of expound on what she said in a second. But the one thing that I have found probably over the past month, maybe a little bit longer, is with listings, I've started to get a lot of sign calls again. It seems to me, I don't know if maybe because open houses aren't going on. The peak in sign calls have been there. And so obviously I know you have to have listings to get that business, but where I've also transitioned that is, I know people don't like doing it and they're uncomfortable with it, especially now, but people are home. And so I've started circle prospecting again. And I do it around listings. Ideally just sold or just listed. And that's where I've gotten a lot of my listing, I guess, business recently. People are home, and I know it's a delicate thing. People don't like doing it, but as long as you're respectful, I mean, you're going to get cussed out once in a while. That's the reality of it. But as long as you're respectful, people are home. And especially if you've got something to tell them, like a just sold in a neighborhood or a just listed, it's an easy conversation to have. And then the other thing is, yeah, very much Sphere. So I've always been Sphere and past client driven. I have 4 buyers consultations this week. All 4 of them have come from my database, referrals from clients. And I am very diligent about how I do that. I have a strategy in place. And what I do with past clients is after they close, they go in the system and I do a 2-day touch, a 2-week touch, a 6-month touch, and a 1-year touch. And like Renee said, I'm not the in-your-face, ask for business type person. But I agree. It's about building relationships and having those conversations and build that relationship through that process so that when you call them up, you have something that you can refer back to. And it's about, for lack of a better term, just being a human being and just talking to someone and having a conversation with them. I took a KW class a while ago, and it might have been Peter Chabris, but somebody said, people do business with people they like. And that's the honest truth. People tend to find their matches. And so if you can be diligent about building that relationship with somebody moving forward, you will get referrals in the future. And of course I ask for business, but usually the conversation is when I follow up with them is, how are the kids? How are the family? I'm a big sports fan. So if we can connect that way, it's great. And then it usually, hey, by the way, trying to build my business. Do you know anybody? And that's, again, it's relationship first and then business second.
So Vinny, let me expand a little bit back on the sign and the circle prospecting. That's interesting that if we're not having open houses, taking advantage of your sign. So on the average listing, how many people are you calling in the immediate neighborhood or in your circle prospecting?
So as much time as I have, to be honest with you, usually I'll pick like 50 to 100 people around. And I don't mojo. I get title companies can provide you numbers, and they're not always the greatest, but a lot of times most of them will be there. And so I try to hit a decent amount. Now, what I try to do with the circle prospecting, specifically my own listings, is I don't call anybody that you can filter it, anybody that has bought it in the past 3 years. So I'm targeting people that have been there a while, specifically if you have a good number in that neighborhood, because it's good information for them to know. B, if you got a good number, that can hopefully push them in the right direction to thinking about selling. So the honest question is, as much as I have time for, but I try to at least hit 100 or 50 houses in that direct area.
Okay. And so that brings us to the question about how have your prospecting methods changed since the virus? Renee?
Yes, I think they've definitely changed. What I've done is I've taken advantage of, those moments, and I've stayed busy and steadily busy, But I've taken those moments and started looking at what have I always complained about, saying, well, when I have time, I'll do this. You know, when this is something I want to work on. This is, you know, something different. So I had to go get out of that sphere of influence, past client, that, and go, where are my weaknesses? What do I need to strengths on? One thing that I did start doing, and I'm working on now, is I started to, for listings, think about what can I do during this time. You know, it's hard to, well, it's better now, but a month ago, door knocking was, and when I say door knocking, very specific, but you know, it wasn't something people wanted you to do. They didn't want you stepping foot on their yard. So during that time, I went back and I took, basically I took a abbreviated seller's guide, something that you would sit with a listing once you have the appointment and give them, you know, you have a seller's guide that's very detailed about all of the services that you have. Bless you. And,
Thank you.
I thought, you know, I've always wanted to do abbreviated seller's guide, something that I could go to an expired listing, go to a FSBO, something that a neighborhood, a street that maybe somebody, for instance, I have a buyer who's looking at a very specific street, 2 streets in Worthington, that I could give them besides just my card. So I created a trifold seller's guide, and it is very easy to read, but it's not overwhelming, but it's not too much, but it's not, you know, hey, this is Renee with Keller Williams Capital Partners, here's my card, da, 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 that I could give them, that would give them an overall guide of what I would do. Something that maybe, hopefully, is a little above just the norm. So that's what I'm working on now, to do that. I've also done things like, I've got my showing cards. Now I've ordered new blingy, you know, more expensive business cards that I'm going to give with that. Something just to try to set me above, maybe stand out where somebody goes, wow, you know, she put, you know, some time in that she must know what she's doing now, whatever. So that's really what I've been focusing on now. Those things that you normally don't necessarily get to.
So what, you said it's about 3 pages long, so it would be your marketing tips or tips for seller to prepare, or what's in there?
It's a trifold. So it's got, you know, of course the front is just an introduction to myself. When you open it up, it talks a little bit about, it's all abbreviated about Keller Williams, our numbers, our stats, you know, what we would do, how I would negotiate for you, why Keller Williams is special, and basically what my services are and what I'll do for you. It's just something with an overview that's easy to read, where they're not getting something that's overwhelming, but not too vague either.
And are you mailing them or intend to walk them around?
Both.
Okay.
My initial, ideally, I'd prefer to actually walk them around. You know, I had a coach at one time and gave me anything I learned was the best advice, and I don't know why this stuck out with me, was when you're going up to somebody that, whether it's a FSBO, you know, an expired, when you go up to that door, don't try to, you know, meet with them, anything like that. Basically, show up, knock on your door, use a script, something to the effect of, you know, I see that your home is for sale by owner. I'm on my way to another appointment. You know, and I noticed your home, or I'm on my way to another appointment. I saw that your listing had expired, but I wanted to drop some information off for you and introduce myself. And drop that off, do that soft touch, and head out, and then go back and you know, go through your other touches with them and try to reach out. This particular coach, that's how he built his entire business, was by doing that. You know, I'm just stopping by. So they don't feel like you're in their face, and they don't feel like they're being pushed on. Just, hey, I'm on my way to another appointment. Here's my information. So that's where that seller guide came in to me, to give them something more than here's my card.
Hopefully we'll get Regan in here soon. I think they're working on
I think
it.
I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. Vinny, anything different you're doing post-virus?
Am I unmuted? Yes, I am.
Yes,
unmuted.
you are.
Okay. Not really. The circle prospecting.
Mhm.
I used to do that. I got away from it because just laziness. So I started doing that again. But other than that, no. I mean, like I said, I'm database driven. So I've always been like that. That's how I choose to build my business. So that hasn't changed. I'm still plugging along. So I really haven't done anything per se differently other than getting back to circle prospecting. But that's just honestly trying to take advantage of what the market currently looks like.
Right. And so expound a little bit on what kind of, are you seeing some results to the circle prospecting? How are people receiving those phone calls?
With anything, it's trial and error. So the overall phone calls have been pretty good. The reality of it is anybody that's done Mojo or circle prospecting on the calls, you're going to get a lot of no answers. And so you get a lot of those and you just leave a voicemail and leave it at that. But it's worked pretty good. I've done it a few times and I've gotten a couple really good leads. One of my listings was actually in the neighborhood I sphere, neighborhood I farm. And so I did it in there, and a lot of people in there already know me or know of me. And so that's a little bit easier. I would say probably 70-80% of the people I talk to are receptive to it enough where they won't cuss you out.
I would think a lot of people are curious about the market and during this virus time. So it is something to talk about on those phone calls.
Yes, exactly.
So it is good to get back to some of the basics, some of the things we didn't really have to do because listings sold really fast, but circle prospecting and going door to door with something of value. So those are tried and true methods.
I adhere to a very simple formula in real estate. It's called KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. Leave it at that.
Yeah, I don't think people want a PhD dissertation, that's for sure.
No.
They like results. And so they like market stats and results oriented. But I do think a lot of people are curious about how we are conducting business now. At least people are asking me, what's going on. As I walk around, even in my own neighborhood, people stop you and ask, what's happening? How are you doing business, or how are the agents doing business? So coming from gratitude and ingesting a little curiosity, that's always a good thing. I think you both answered that you both work with buyers and sellers predominantly. Describe how you've altered your process during this time, if at all. Renee?
I would say, I don't know that I've altered anything. The biggest thing that's is a challenge is I always look at, I've got sellers and I've got buyers that both want to do either that, or, the double dipping, they want to sell and they want to buy. I think, and if we had the inventory, all of us, we'd have so much more in contract. The biggest challenge for myself that has been altering, and I see it all the time, and I've got the same scenario, is, you've got the seller and the buyer that is one, and they don't want to sell because they don't want to be homeless. and so that's their fear, or they need to sell to buy, and they just can't find anything. So it's a domino effect, because they're sitting there going, well, I'm not going to sell because I need to find a place. So that's been the biggest challenge, I think. I don't know if that quite answers your question, but I think that what I'm really seeing, and it's so interesting, is, and it's becoming, 3 years ago, nobody would ever accept a home sale contingency with multiple offers. Now you're seeing so many home sale contingencies, and they're becoming more acceptable. And you just have to look at that and look at the circumstances as a whole and see, is that a good idea? And if it is, it's not, there's more of that. So where before it just wasn't, if you have a home sale contingency, forget it. Don't even send the offer. And now it's, will your buyer or your seller accept a home sale? Will your seller accept? I mean, it happens. I'm seeing it more and more and more. So I think that's becoming part of the program right now.
Mm-hmm. Expound a little bit about that. Are you controlling the amount of time for that contingency, or
yes, yes, I think that the biggest thing is one, I want to know what is the property, what's the condition of the property. I want to look it up. Is this property sellable? I mean, anything is sellable in this market right now. If it's priced appropriately, you can sell anything. But does it have the best possible odds of getting on the market quickly and being sold? Is the home ready to go? Do they have photos yet? Are they, so putting on a time frame where you're, a week. I actually, coincidentally, I listed my home and bought something and had to have my home on the market in 3 days, but I already had pictures taken. I already had it ready to go. So I was on it, so that helped. But I'm finding that with my listings and just putting that time limit on that, it has to be on the market and on a certain time. I just did something with somebody over the weekend, and we agreed that because I had sellers that said, and it was a legitimate question, they really, 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 really wanted to work with this particular scenario, this contract. And they said, well, what if, and they had to sell to buy. So now we have a domino effect. And they said, well, what happens if they get a home sale contingency? And I said, yeah, we could have a really bad situation. We could have a huge domino effect. Well, we agreed that there was going to be, on the terms, no accepting of a home sale contingency. We did go in contract. There's a risk, but again, knowing the agent, knowing, who you're working with and who you're dealing with and the terms and just the overall situation. I think that's huge before you make that decision. Because even the best one can be a bad one,
Right. Vinny, you want to talk about home sale contingencies? Because I think you've been doing,
Yeah, they are awesome. So yeah, I mean, I agree. You're seeing them a lot. One thing I try to do when I'm using one is, they're still really hard when you're competing, but one thing I try to do is I tell all my clients, if we're going to use a home sale going in, we have to have pictures ready. We have to have paperwork signed. We have to show the seller that we are serious, because we're going to limit timelines. I usually do, we'll list within 5 days, in contract within, I can tell you one I just did. It was list within 3 days, contract within 14. If we don't have a contract within 14, sellers can terminate, and then we're going to close in 30. After we get a contract. So to me, when you're using it, it's about showing that seller that A, they can trust you, and B, that you're serious. You really want to make this happen, and that you're ready to go. As soon as you sign the contract, we'll list the house. On the flip side, when accepting them, I agree. When I accept home sale contingencies, one of the conditions is you will not accept a home sale contingency on your house. I think that's a must specifically in this market. And, depending on the price point, I coach sellers to say the reality of it is, I mean, depending on your price point, a lot of people are going to have them, so it just kind of is what it is. And you roll with the punches, but you are starting to see them a lot more.
So it sounds like you both are advocating people getting ready, particularly if they want to make a move up or down, if they're downsizing or whatever, to not wait till they find something, to be ready so they can go in with a very strong home sale contingency.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I think the hardest thing that sellers don't, when you look at your house and you think, well, I can do this and I can get that done in this amount of time. People don't realize the amount of time and work it takes to get it show ready, to get it the way it truly needs to be. And that means, getting the dirt, scrubbing it clean and getting rid of I always say, if you don't like the way your house looks and you think it's bare, you're good to go, then you're ready. If you feel like this is, if you have to look in the refrigerator to see if somebody actually lives here, your house is ready. And so I think that it's critical. And I want to know that the other person has that home prepped, that they're not going to, show pictures with dirty clothes on the floor and, because I've seen them.
So just to follow up, one more question on that. So if somebody says, if I could find what I want to buy, I'd sell, how quickly are you getting them in prep mode?
From the very beginning, I've had clients that were with me for probably 2 years, and the only reason they didn't find anything is because it was very, very, very specific what they were looking for: property in a certain area, land, a pool and a barn, and so it was very specific. And I told them way ahead of time. I said, you guys have got to start now. And I always tell everybody, get your home ready. You're moving. You're gonna move. So pack. You know what you're not using. You know the things that you don't need. Pack your things. Put them in boxes. Get ready to move. Because if you really, truly are moving, pack. Pack like you're moving. Keep the things. So start working on that. And they realize how much work it really is and how much time it takes. So the sooner the better. And people worry, well, where do I put it? Put it in your garage neatly. It's okay. People are okay with that. It just, you're moving, so pack, and then that way it's not so overwhelming. And then they don't, picture day comes and you're not going, oh dear, I wish they wouldn't have done that. Or, you're in the running, I've done it, where you're running around trying to hide things and,
Right.
I learned that way.
Vinny, how about you?
I immediately, if they're serious about buying and they need to use a home sale contingency, as soon as possible. And I guess a lot of it's price point too, depending on where they're at and what's available in that price point. For example, I have buyers right now, buyers and sellers, and they're looking, shout out if anybody has this coming, in Pickerington from about $300 to $350, and they've got to sell their house. So we're going to use a home sale contingency. That price point, it moves. The good stuff moves. And so the conversation is we have to be ready, paperwork signed, pictures taken, house ready to go. They're not ready yet. A house popped up. We couldn't do anything with it. They absolutely loved it. That happens one time. People tend to get the picture of, okay, you're right. We need to be ready to go. So sometimes it does take people to actually see it and experience it, to feel that it's real. But I tell people, if this is what you want to do, the other hard conversation sometimes I have with people is, in this market, you're either in or you're out. There can't be a lot of, well, I don't know, maybe we would. If you're going to use a home sale contingency and you're in a specific price point and you're in anything, anything that's going to move quick, which is pretty much everything, you're in or you're out. You can't be foot half in, foot half out, because what's going to happen is you're not going to be ready a house is going to come along that you love and you're not going to be able to buy it. So you're in or you're out. And sometimes that's tough conversations to have with people. But again, that's our job. So you have to have those conversations with people.
All right, I'd like to open it up if anybody has questions of Renee and Vinny and with anything they've shared.
Okay. See ya.
If Regan is still listening, we hope to hear from her soon, but we'll get her on another panel, hopefully. So, Kayla, are you going to open it up for new listings at
Yeah.
this point? Thank you, Renee. Thank you, Vinny. That was
You're
excellent.
welcome.
I
You're
loved
welcome.
some of
Thank
your
you.
thoughts.
Thank you. Take care,
Welcome.
Lori.